The night sky above the Red Sea explodes in fire. Sirens wail across Israel's southern bases as Iranian missiles scream through the darkness. Explosions light up radar installations, fuel depots, and naval docks. For the first time in decades, Israel's Red Sea stronghold has been struck directly by Tehran. Global news channels break the story within minutes. Iran has launched a direct attack on Israel's Red Sea base. Markets spiral, leaders scramble to war rooms, and the question that grips the world is simple. Has the Middle East just crossed the point of no return? This isn't just a strike. It is a signal, a warning that Iran is ready to escalate the shadow war into open confrontation. For Israel, the attack is more than a provocation. It is an existential challenge. So tonight, we break it down. What led to this strike? How does Israel respond? And most importantly, what happens next when a regional flashpoint turns into a global crisis? Before we continue, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe to GeoPower Report. Every action helps us grow and continue delivering urgent, fact-based geopolitical analysis. This video is for educational purposes only. It began just past midnight. Radar stations along Israel's southern coast first picked up unusual blips over the Red Sea. Within moments, sirens screamed across Eilat and the southern naval bases. Iranian cruise missiles, launched from vessels and coastal batteries in the Gulf of Oman, pierced the darkness, heading directly toward Israel's strategic Red Sea installations. The first wave struck fuel depots and logistics hubs, sending towering fireballs into the night sky. Smoke rose hundreds of meters, visible even from nearby civilian ports. Israeli defense systems responded instantly. Iron Dome batteries and David Sling interceptors flared as they attempted to neutralize incoming threats. Yet a handful of missiles broke through, impacting radar arrays and military warehouses. Eyewitness reports described the scene as apocalyptic. Naval docks shaking under the impact of explosions, military vehicles caught in secondary blasts, and emergency crews rushing through the chaos. Security cameras captured the surreal contrast, the calm Red Sea waters reflecting flashes of fire and smoke, like a war-torn mirror of the night sky. Iran's military strategy was calculated. This was not a random barrage. It was a precision strike aimed at crippling Israel's Red Sea logistics corridor. Analysts note that hitting radar, fuel supplies, and naval depots simultaneously indicates sophisticated intelligence and a capability to coordinate multi-domain attacks, naval, aerial, and missile. Within minutes, the strike triggered alarms across the Middle East. Egypt, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia scrambled to assess the threat level, while U.S. intelligence satellites began tracking Iranian naval movements in real time. Markets reacted immediately, with oil prices spiking as traders feared a disruption in Red Sea shipping lanes critical for global energy transport. For Israel, the strike was both a tactical and psychological blow. Officials described the early morning hours as controlled chaos, with troops executing rapid response protocols, while leadership assessed Iran's next possible moves. Social media exploded with videos of the strikes, and global news outlets carried live updates, spreading a sense of immediacy and danger far beyond the region. By dawn, the scale of the attack was becoming clear. Several military assets were damaged, critical radar systems temporarily offline, and for the first time in decades, Israel faced a direct Iranian strike on its southern border, a moment that could redefine security calculations across the Middle East. Israel's countermove. As dawn broke over the Red Sea, Israel was already mobilizing. Military command centers lit up with activity. Officers analyzed satellite feeds, radar data, and incoming intelligence reports. The message from Tel Aviv was clear. This strike would not go unanswered. The Israeli Air Force launched a rapid counterstrike, targeting Iranian-backed positions in southern Yemen and maritime platforms suspected of firing the missiles. Precision-guided munitions streaked through the sky, illuminating the horizon as defensive and offensive operations overlapped. Naval forces patrolled aggressively. Israel's missile boats were deployed to secure the Red Sea corridor, intercepting any vessels potentially carrying additional Iranian weaponry. Submarines were placed on heightened alert, and rapid response commando units were deployed near vulnerable installations along the southern coast. Simultaneously, Israel activated its multi-layered air defense network. Iron Dome batteries intercepted remaining Iranian missiles. David Sling and Arrow, two systems were on high alert, and early warning radars continuously scanned the skies for further attacks. Analysts later noted that the coordination between air, naval, and ground defense units showcased Israel's decades of preparation for just this kind of multi-domain escalation. Politically, Israeli leadership delivered a clear, firm statement. Any attack on our territory will be met with decisive retaliation. We will protect our sovereignty, our people, and our strategic interests in the Red Sea region. Social media amplified these messages, spreading footage of defense systems firing, patrol boats maneuvering, and airstrikes taking place, creating a sense of both reassurance at home and warning abroad. The countermeasures also included cyber operations. Israeli intelligence units reportedly launched targeted attacks on Iranian military communication networks, disrupting command and control functions, and hindering Tehran's ability to coordinate follow-up strikes. By midday, Israel's response had already shifted the strategic calculus. The Red Sea corridor, though temporarily disrupted, remained under control. Iranian forces had struck a blow, but Israel's immediate countermove had demonstrated its readiness, capability, and resolve, a clear message that escalation would come at a high cost. Yet, analysts warned, while Israel had managed to limit damage and assert control, the strike had opened a dangerous new chapter in the region's ongoing shadow conflict, with the potential to spiral far beyond the immediate Red Sea theater, U.S. and global reaction. Across the globe, news of the Iranian strike sent shockwaves through capitals. In Washington, the National Security Council convened an emergency session. Satellite imagery, intelligence reports, and military assessments were analyzed in real time. President and senior officials emphasized the need for a measured response, both to reassure allies and avoid immediate escalation. U.S. forces in the region were placed on heightened alert. Carrier groups in the Gulf were repositioned, Aegis missile defense systems recalibrated, and rapid deployment units prepared for possible evacuation or intervention scenarios. Washington also opened communication channels with Riyadh, Cairo, and Amman, coordinating regional stability measures. European allies expressed alarm. NATO officials emphasized the risk of the conflict spreading beyond the Middle East, with Mediterranean shipping routes and global trade potentially impacted. Stock markets reacted instantly. Oil prices surged as traders feared a disruption in Red Sea and Persian Gulf energy flows, while safe haven assets like gold and government bonds spiked. United Nations officials called for restraint, urging both Tehran and Tel Aviv to de-escalate tensions. Meanwhile, Iran's messaging framed the attack as a defensive response to Israeli provocations, signaling that Tehran seeks not total war but regional leverage. Social media amplified the sense of urgency. Images of the strike, counterstrikes, and naval mobilizations went viral, drawing millions of viewers into a live geopolitical drama. The message was clear: the world was watching. One misstep could ignite a broader conflict, and every major power, the US, China, Russia, and regional actors, was weighing how to protect interests without plunging the Middle East into full-scale war. Escalation? Across the Middle East. The strike did not remain an isolated incident. Across the Middle East, tensions flared. Yemen's Houthi forces, long aligned with Iran, increased missile and drone activity against southern Saudi targets. Hezbollah in Lebanon issued statements of solidarity, heightening Israel's northern alert. Even Iraq and Syria reported unusual troop movements near critical installations, signaling that the conflict's ripple effect was expanding geographically. Israel's neighbors responded cautiously. Egypt and Jordan reinforced border security, while Gulf states monitored shipping lanes and airspace. The region's military balance, already fragile, began to shift subtly, as nations recalibrated alliances and defensive postures. Intelligence analysts warned that any further miscalculation could trigger multi-front skirmishes. Energy infrastructure became a key vulnerability. Iranian and allied forces threatened shipping through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, critical for global oil transport. Israel and allied navies increased patrols, while global insurers raised premiums for cargo vessels navigating the region. This escalation also had a psychological dimension. Citizens across the Middle East watched the developments unfold on television and social media, fueling both fear and nationalistic fervor. Governments faced growing domestic pressure to respond decisively, even as diplomatic channels remained active behind the scenes. By the end of the first 48 hours, analysts concluded that while a full-scale regional war had not yet erupted, The Red Sea strike had transformed local tensions into a multi-layered geopolitical crisis, a flashpoint capable of redefining power equations across the Middle East. Oil, trade, and global economy. The strike's reverberations were not limited to military fronts. Global markets felt the shock immediately. Oil prices surged, with Brent crude spiking as much as 7% in early trading, reflecting fears over potential disruptions in the Red Sea and Bab el-Mandeb Strait, a crucial artery for nearly 5% of the world's oil shipments. Tankers rerouted, insurance premiums skyrocketed, and shipping companies warned of delays for essential goods traveling between Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. International trade, already strained by pandemic aftershocks and geopolitical tensions, faced a new hurdle. Ports in the region tightened security, and maritime logistics firms scrambled to adjust routes. Analysts warned that prolonged instability could ripple into energy-dependent industries globally, from manufacturing in Europe to consumer fuel prices in North America. Beyond economics, financial markets reflected investor anxiety. Stock indices dipped as uncertainty gripped global capitals, while gold, U.S. Treasuries, and safe haven assets rallied. Central banks began monitoring the situation closely, aware that prolonged conflict could destabilize fragile post-pandemic recoveries. For Israel, the strike highlighted vulnerabilities not just militarily but economically. Disrupted Red Sea shipping corridors threatened import and export chains. Iran, meanwhile, leveraged the strike as a tool of economic signaling, a reminder of the strategic leverage energy choke points give the region's actors. The takeaway was stark. The Red Sea strike was not just a local flashpoint. It was a geopolitical shockwave, capable of affecting global trade, energy security, and financial stability. Economists and strategists emphasized that even a contained conflict could have cascading effects worldwide, turning a regional military confrontation into a global economic story with long-term implications. The road ahead, possible outcomes. As dust settled over the Red Sea, the question on every analyst's mind was clear. What happens next? The strike had shattered assumptions about regional restraint and demonstrated that Tehran could hit critical Israeli infrastructure far from its borders. Several scenarios now loom on the horizon. One possibility is contained escalation, a tit-for-tat cycle of strikes and counterstrikes limited to targeted military assets, with diplomacy preventing wider confrontation. However, history warns that miscalculations, technical errors, or overreactions could quickly escalate into a broader regional war, drawing in allies across the Middle East and even global powers like the U.S., Russia, and China. Another scenario involves proxy conflicts intensifying. Iran-backed groups such as Hezbollah, Houthis, and Shiite militias in Iraq could launch additional strikes, further stretching Israel's defenses and destabilizing neighboring states. Israel, in turn, might escalate preemptively, targeting supply lines or military infrastructure in multiple theaters. Economically, continued tensions threaten global energy security. Shipping lanes, oil production, and trade corridors remain vulnerable, potentially triggering higher prices and long-term disruptions that extend far beyond the Middle East. Financial markets, already jittery, could face sustained volatility. Diplomacy will be key. International actors from the US and EU to regional powers will be forced to balance pressure on Tehran with incentives for restraint. Back-channel negotiations, sanctions, and security guarantees may define the next phase of this crisis. Ultimately, one lesson is clear. The Red Sea strike marks a turning point. It has reshaped the strategic calculus in the Middle East, demonstrating that a single event can ripple outward, affecting security, economics, and global politics alike. The world watches, tense, knowing that the next move could either stabilize the region or push it toward an unprecedented conflagration. As night falls once again over the Red Sea, the echoes of the Iranian strike linger. Smoke still rises from damaged installations, ships patrol the waters, and global eyes remain fixed on a region teetering on the edge of escalation. The events of the past 48 hours have made one thing clear. The Middle East has entered a new phase of uncertainty. Military calculations, economic vulnerabilities, and diplomatic maneuvers are now intertwined in a high-stakes game with global consequences. What started as a single precision strike has expanded into a multi-layered crisis, one that tests the resolve of nations, alliances, and leaders alike. For Israel, the strike was a reminder of both vulnerability and resilience. For Iran, it was a demonstration of strategic reach. For the world, it is a stark warning that even localized conflicts can reverberate across economies, trade routes, and political landscapes. But the story is not over. Every missile launched, every strategic decision made, and every diplomatic message sent will shape the coming days. Analysts will watch, governments will respond, and citizens worldwide will feel the ripple effects. In geopolitics, moments like these define history, and the Red Sea strike may well be remembered as one such turning point. If you want to stay ahead of global developments like this, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to GeoPower Report. Hit the bell icon to receive urgent updates as events unfold. Share this video so others understand the high stakes at play in the Middle East today. Because in a world where a single missile can change the course of history, staying informed isn't just important, it's essential.